Welcome to another video breakdown of Little League's new four-umpire system released in the early spring of 2021. This video here will outline the fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls to the outfield. Specifically, we'll take a look at trouble fly balls. Now, while the video is definitely made to pair with a lot of the things with the 60-foot diamond, it is important to note that the fundamentals of tracking and chasing that we'll outline in this video do apply to both the 50-70 diamond and the 90-foot diamond as well. So even though the video really pairs with the 60-foot mechanics, it is important to realize here that the fundamentals of tracking and chasing apply to any diamond size, whether it's the 60-foot diamond, this 50-70 diamond, or the 90-foot diamond. So we can apply those fundamentals to all diamonds as well. We'll first review routine versus trouble balls here in the context of the 60-foot four-umpire system, and then we'll take a look at the pause, read, react technique that many of us know and apply that specifically to the fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls to the outfield. As usual, we'll end up with some video clips that'll help us illustrate a lot of the concepts and fundamentals that we'll talk about here today in the larger idea of tracking and chasing fly balls. So let's go ahead and get ready to get started here for us today. We'll start first by reviewing here with the difference between trouble balls and routine fly balls here that we would have obviously talked a little bit about relative to other previous recordings as well. So let me go ahead and get this up for us. Again, the topic here is tracking and chasing trouble fly balls to the outfield. And again, remember, as I said, that this stuff here, these concepts will apply not only to the 60-foot diamond, but the fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls can also be applied to the two larger diamonds as well, the 50-70 diamond and the 90 diamond as well. Now, let's go ahead and review here. First of all, routine fly balls. If you remember from our previous videos, a routine fly ball is a batted ball that requires ordinary effort by the fielder attempting to make a play on the ball. Now, what I'd like to make sure that we highlight here as we discuss these routine balls and even the trouble balls is the importance to note here that the routine and the trouble ball nature is all determined by the effort of the fielder. So when we start to talk about reading, and I'm foreshadowing things here where we're going, it's important for us to read the fielder rather than our perception of whether or not it is actually a trouble ball. So we're going to read the effort of the fielder to determine routine or trouble ball. Now, routine fly ball, if you remember, can either be a base hit or a fly ball. We talked about that in our point of bag discussion in a previous video as well. But nonetheless here, routine fly balls or routine batted balls, these are ones that require very ordinary effort by a fielder to make a play on that ball. Now, trouble balls, if you remember, fall into one of four categories. Number one that requires extraordinary effort. So a diving catch, for example, would be a great example of a trouble ball, one that causes a fielder to provide effort inwards very aggressively, backwards, or to the sides, either way here. So again, it is the nature or the reaction of the fielder that determines the trouble or routine nature rather than our perception of the ball off the bat. So we're going to have to read the fielder more so than we actually read the ball. Another category here that classifies us into trouble balls is any ball, any fly ball that has two or more fielders converging. That'll go ahead and necessitate U1, U2, or U3 to go ahead and give track and chase to it if it is in his or her area of responsibility. Third category, anything that threatens the boundary. So that's a home run fence or the foul fences, anything that threatens the boundary there that could potentially get involved with the catch and the nature thereof. We should have a base umpire out on U1, U2, U3 if that fly ball particularly is in their respective area of responsibility. Lastly, the fourth category of a trouble ball is a fly ball within 20 feet of the line for a fair foul decision. That then will necessitate us to track and chase. So again, routine fly balls here on the 60-foot diamond, those are ones that are going to go to the plate umpire, ones that require ordinary effort. But on the 60-foot diamond, trouble balls, those that fall into these four categories: extraordinary effort, two or more fielders converging, threatening the boundary of the fence, and then lastly, one within 20 feet of the line. All of those then would require anyone, U1, U2, U3, to track and chase the fly ball when it is in his or her area of responsibility. Now, there are a couple fundamentals here that we should go ahead and abide by and things to think about with regards to tracking and chasing fly ball. Now, I want to go back to thinking about the pause, read, react that we've all often heard in our umpiring endeavors. And the first thing that I want to start here with is obviously pause. And I think it's important for us to realize that pausing is generally done and best and most effectively done in the pre-pitch routine that we have. So rather than letting our minds wander and things like that, in our pre-pitch routine, we've got to make sure that we are pausing there to know our area of responsibility, and if an umpire goes out, given the situation, where are we rotating to? Am I going point of base in this situation, or do I have to rotate accordingly? So I think number one, our pause situation here, or the idea of pause, should be incorporated into our pre-pitch routine where we are thinking ahead. We know our area of responsibility, and then we are alert to know when and where we are supposed to rotate if we have to do so given the situation. Now, the second one is read. So we've got pause, that's our pre-pitch look, and then we've got read. And I'm going to say here that when we read with the ball in the air to go track and chase fly balls, there are 3 reads that we have to make. So these are these 3 fundamentals that we want to go ahead and highlight here in the fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls. Number 1, we want to read the fielder, not the ball. Remember here that in the area of responsibility video, we talked about the fact that the area of responsibility is determined by the movement of the fielder. So for example, if the right fielder moves in any direction towards the line, that goes ahead and requires U1 to give track and chase to that fly ball. Again, it's the movement of the fielder that would dictate the fact that that ball would be in U1's area of responsibility. Likewise, remember U2's area of responsibility is from the right fielder straight in and straight back, the center fielder straight in and straight back, and all the way to the left fielder straight in and straight back. So again, the movement of the fielders is what dictates area of responsibility. So rather than trying to read the ball off the bat and trying to look up and find it, rather what we should do here is we should go ahead and read the fielder, not the ball. So our first read with ball off the bat is once it gets in the air, yes, we're going to pause, and then we're going to read. And our first read is the fielders, not necessarily the baseball. We'll have an idea of where the baseball or softball is headed off the bat. So the first step here in reading is read the fielder, not the ball. Second step then is to read routine versus trouble. Now again, remember on the 60-foot diamond, we are only tracking and chasing trouble baseballs, trouble balls to the outfield. Again, we are only tracking and chasing trouble balls to the outfield, anything in the 4 categories that we mentioned in the previous slide. Again, remember that this read is based upon the effort of the fielder. If the fielder here is exemplifying extraordinary effort, for example, that generally requires us to go track and chase a fly ball. Now, we've also talked about one that threatens the boundaries. We've talked about the fair foul decision, and we're going to know those things with the ball off the bat. We've all umpired enough. But again, as you take a look here at our first 2 reads, very important to highlight here, not to look up and try and read the baseball, but rather read the fielder, not the ball, because the fielder will give us an idea of, number 1, if that ball is in our area of responsibility, and secondly, will give us a better understanding as to whether or not the ball is trouble or routine. The last read that we want to make is on our partners, so we want to make sure that our eyes are up and we're communicating. We'll talk about the nonverbal stop hand, and I'll show you some examples of that in the videos that we'll take a look at here as well. But remember that we'll defer to you too. And as we'll take a look in some of the examples, if 2 umpires decide to break on the same fly ball or go out on the same fly ball, you two will be allowed to continue to give track or chase, whereas the wing umpire will break off their pursuit and either rotate accordingly or move to point of base. Okay, so those are the options that we would have for that situation when 2 umpires essentially break on the same fly ball. We'll revisit that concept again when we take a look then at the video. The last thing here with reading is to kind of read the nature of the ball. We'll talk a lot about bloopers, or as I'm going to call them or label them, tweeners. Tweeners or bloopers are just shallow trouble balls where on the 60-foot diamond, we should probably think about doing both, where we have eyes on the catch, no catch in our area of responsibility, and then we also then are able to kind of work back to point of base. And the reason why this is so important on the 60-foot diamond, doing both on these tweeners or these bloopers, as we'll see, is we don't want to hang our partners out to dry. If we go out on a trouble ball, for example, there may be a force play to which we cannot rotate in time back to. So as we talk about tweeners or shallow pop flies or bloopers, whatever you want to call them, it's important to encourage us to think about how to do both and then how to use our body language to communicate we are going to do both. And that way we can read those things. So as you see here, we take a look at tracking and chasing fly balls. Pause means before the pitch. We are thinking about our area of responsibility. We're also then thinking about where we're supposed to rotate if we have to do so. With the ball in the air, we must read 3 reads to make. Number 1, the fielder, not the ball, based upon the area of responsibility. We need to determine whether or not it is a trouble ball or routine based upon those 4 categories, largely dictated by the effort of the fielder. And then lastly, read our partner, so we don't have 2 umpires out on the same fly ball. Remember that if we do have 2 umpires go out on the same fly ball, we defer to U2. So U2 continues his or her chase, whereas U1 or U3 would break it off, and they would either rotate or return to point of bat. The last thing here to think about in our pause, read, react breakdown of the fundamentals of tracking and chasing is to make sure that we react. So when we react, this means that we are going to leave to cover a trouble ball. So again, if we determine that the ball's in our area of responsibility, that it's a trouble ball, and we communicate, we'll go out. And then as we give track and chase, there are 3 things we should do. Number 1, run parallel to the fielder attempting to catch the ball. Why do we want to run parallel? Well, running parallel basically allows us to avoid getting straight line on like a short hop or something of that nature. In addition to running parallel as we react or track and chase fly balls, as we go ahead and run out to the outfield, we want to go as far as the play allows us, but get set right as the fielder goes ahead and is ready to receive the catch. We want to make sure that we are set and we are stopped as the fielder receives the catch. So we want to set and stop before the fielder receives the catch. And then lastly, when we go out, we're going to stay out. There's really only one exception to this, and this is if we get a rundown and you have to box it in with an umpire who is in multiple base responsibilities, but a very slim likelihood of that. So when we go out, we're going to stay out. We're not going to return to the infield unless, as you see here, we get to a rundown, in which then we need to provide some support on the back end of. So again, tracking and chasing fly balls. Pause, read, react. Pause is the pre-pitch. Reading, you've got that. We've already outlined here those 3 reads: the fielder, not the ball, routine versus trouble, and then your partners. And then reacting. As we decide to go give chase, we must run parallel to the fielder so we don't get straight line, get as far as the play allows us, and then get stopped before the fielder is going to catch the ball. And then lastly, when we go out, we're going to stay out. Let's take a look here at a couple different clips here that will illustrate tracking and chasing fly balls and the fundamentals that we just went ahead and discussed. Here we have a fly ball to right field. So there's the swing. The ball goes to right field. And if everybody takes a look at the movement of the right fielder, this is kind of what we were talking about. Here, if you take a look, we get 2 umpires that kind of break on the same fly ball. Now, I think U1 does a really good job. If you take a look at his head, they're on U2. And mistakenly, U2 goes out after this fly ball. Now, why do I say he mistakenly goes out on this fly ball? Well, if we take a look at the right fielder, okay, let's take a look at the right fielder, you'll see that he is moving in a direction towards the line. And remember that if the fielder, the right fielder, is moving towards the line, and in this case, even towards the boundary, it belongs then to U1 in this case, area of responsibility. So again, remember, read the fielder, not the ball, because that's what determines area of responsibility. And as we see in this clip, the right fielder clearly takes steps towards the line. It should be U1's chase. Now remember, we defer to U2. So if 2 umpires break on the same fly ball, as we see depicted in this video clip, it is the wing umpire, in this case U1, who breaks off his pursuit and then goes ahead and either rotates accordingly or moves to point of base, as he does here in this clip. Okay, so with 2 umpires out, we want to defer to U2. Another similar clip here. This one goes to left field. And as we go ahead and get ready to see, we get 2 umpires that break on this fly ball again. But again, it's important for us to pause, read, and react. Again, pause to think about where our area of coverage is, our area of responsibility, and then reading. Number 1, the fielder, not the ball. We want to make sure we read routine versus trouble ball, and then read our fielders. Now again, here in this clip, we've got 2 umpires out on the same fly ball. Here we have the left fielder once again giving chase towards the boundary and towards the line. And what's important for us to realize here, yet again, just as we saw in the other clip, is as these fielders, the left fielder here now in this clip, the right fielder in the previous clip, move towards the line, this is the area of coverage or area of responsibility that belongs to the wing umpire. And again, what's important for us to realize when we give track and chase and make our read, we must read the fielder, not the ball. And here in this case, yet again, the left fielder clearly takes steps towards the left field line and towards the boundary. This should be U3's chase. Now again, just as we saw demonstrated in the previous clip, U3 does a great job of breaking off his pursuit. Here he is in the bottom of the screen because U2 also chases. So U3 will break off his pursuit and he rotates, in this case, into the working area. A couple other fundamentals here to go ahead and highlight with regards to tracking and chasing fly balls. Again, here's that same clip. Again, if 2 umpires break on the same fly ball, remember the wing umpires will defer to U2 and rotate accordingly. That's exactly what we see U3 do here in this case. Yes, both 2 of those umpires were out, but as you see, U3 breaks off his chase and he goes ahead and rotates, whereas U1 in the previous clip went ahead and went to point of bat. A couple other fundamentals here to look at, okay? 2 umpires, once again, break on the same fly ball. U1 and U2 both kind of give chase to one that's straight in and straight back. Doesn't matter if U2 is right or wrong. We are going to defer to U2. Again, it does not matter if U2 is right or wrong. We defer to U2, which means then our wing umpire will break off his pursuit and then go to point of bag as we see depicted in the video. Now, in order to make sure that we avoid this, we need to make sure that we take our time. And timing, if you remember, is a function of proper use of eyes. So as we talk about proper use of eyes, yes, that is to make the right reads, reading the fielder, not the ball, reading whether or not it's trouble or routine, and then reading our partners. That's all part of proper use of eyes. So to make the right reads and process critical information, we must use our eyes correctly. And that requires us to both read and then react. Let's take a look at U3 here in this clip. If everybody takes a look at U3, his eyes technically go to the baseball, but as we take a look at them right now, he is right now looking at U2. And as he's looking at U2, he sees that U2 decides to give track and chase to this fly ball as the left fielder is coming in hard on this one. So U2 makes the right read. And as a result then of that eye contact, U3 then is going to rotate into the working area here and go about the rotation accordingly. Another easy way for us to mitigate any confusion with two umpires out is to provide us with a stop hand. Okay, so here we have a fly ball, and if we take a look at U1, he's going to give chase to this one. The right fielder is moving back towards the line, so this is a good read by U1 to go ahead and determine. And as you see here, an outstretched stop sign basically says here to U2, hey, I'm on this one. You can go ahead and pick me up in the fill rotation. And that's exactly what happens here in this clip. A good job and good usage of the nonverbal communication here, that stop hand to communicate with your crew. Another good look here at U1 giving track and chase. You can see these umpires working together. Again, we take a look at the movement of the right fielder. He is moving towards the line. So this is U1's track and chase. U2 does a great job of getting his eyes to U1 to make sure that we have an umpire out on this one, as we have one that's probably going to be within that 20 feet of the line. U1 gives his hand up to go ahead and signal that he's on this fly ball. That alerts then U2 to rotate into the working area and pick up then first and second base here in the fill rotation. And again, this one is within 20 feet of the line, so it's deemed a trouble ball, in which then we should give track and chase. Another fundamental that we want to talk about when we decide to go ahead and react and track and chase fly balls is to run parallel to the fielder. And again, the reason why we run parallel to the fielder, as we see this umpire do in this picture, is so that we don't get straight lined. So if this fielder was coming hard straight in, and you could potentially get a short hop, if we run directly at the fielder, we could get straight line here. So we want to run parallel to the fielder here to help us avoid getting a straight line look. That gives us the best look possible. Now, the one thing I will say about this particular umpire, this is an easy one to give track and chase to, but as we see, remember that the other fundamental here too is not only do we want to go ahead and run parallel to the fielder, but another fundamental that we want to do is we want to get all the way stopped and set before the fielder goes ahead and receives the catch or tries to make the catch. So if you take a look at it, right as this fielder is making a catch, our umpire is still tracking and chasing. We want to try and get stopped before then. Okay, so we want to get stopped before the fielder goes ahead and makes an attempt on the ball. Again, remember to run parallel. Again, we have a fielder coming in hard here. If our U1 decides to run straight at the right fielder here, he gets straight line potentially on this one, but rather he runs parallel to the fielder. This opens up that angle. And again here, this allows our umpire not to get straight line on this catch attempt. Now, again, remember that the fundamentals, we want to get as far as the play allows us, and then we want to make sure that we get set before the catch. We want to make sure that we get set before the catch. So, again, great chase in the fact that we run parallel here, but we've also got to make sure that we get set at some point before the fielder goes ahead and makes the catch. Another great fundamental here of tracking and chasing fly balls. The last element here of tracking and chasing fly balls here, besides pause, reading, and reacting, running parallel to the fielder, getting as far as we can and getting set, and then obviously going out and staying out. The other thing that we also want to talk about here are these tweeners or these bloopers. And this is important to note here, specifically on the smaller diamond, the 60-foot diamond. Because shallow pop flies, that's what we're going to define tweeners as, is shallow pop flies between infielders and outfielders generally result in converging fielders. And because we have converging fielders in such a case, that means we've got to have an umpire out on this fly ball because it is a trouble ball. But what our challenge is here on the 60-foot diamond is to do both. Because if the ball is not that far away, essentially that is going to allow us to make sure that our partners aren't hung out to dry if we decide to stay out. So let's take a look at a couple different examples of how to manage these tweeners or these bloopers. When we read a tweener, okay, and here this is one that is kind of basically in that gray area, right behind or right around that cutout. We want to try and do both. And that means that we're going to try and use a standing scissors stance. That's our nonverbal to communicate to our crew that, hey, I've got the fly ball, and technically, yes, I'm out, but at the same time, I'm also going to remain responsible for plays at my base. So again, these tweeners where we have kind of converging fielders right here, where we may or may not have a play, we're just going to turn and we are going to pivot and we're going to go chest to ball. We're going to use a standing scissor stance as this umpire does. And then that nonverbal, that scissor stance basically indicates that U1 is responsible for the catch, no catch because it's in his area of responsibility. So it communicates that. And then secondly, it also communicates that there's no need to rotate because he's using that standing set and he's going to move back to point of base. And that's exactly what we see him do there. He does both in this clip. Let me go ahead and rewind that one a little bit for us to take a look at. So again, I went a little bit too far in my rewinding here on these tweeners. So again, fly ball, shallow pop fly right here. We get fielders that are converging. Great pause, read, react by this umpire. Uses the standing set to communicate to his crew that he's got the catch, no catch. So that communicates to the plate umpire that U1, this one is his and his area of responsibility for catch, no catch. And then at the same time, he is able to do both. He's got catch, no catch in his AOR, and he's going to move to point of bag on this tweener or this blooper. And again, think about how hard it would have been for U2 to rotate into the working area to pick up a runner there at first base. Let's say that there was a play on the batter runner at first base. If U1 goes out, we're going to probably end up hanging out U2 to dry there. So we want to make sure that we can do both here on these tweeners. Again, here's another great example of a tweener. Again, one that is kind of going to have that little liner right here. Here we have one that may have been, it's a kind of a quick liner within 20 feet of the line. But as we see here, our umpire, he uses that standing set look. And this basically communicates to his crew that, yes, he's got the ball in his AOR, but he's also then going to do both. He's going to take catch, no catch, or in this case, probably fair foul, and then move back to point of bag. So again, that standing scissor stance, this is a great look, great example here. This standing scissor stance is the key because this is the nonverbal that communicates to the rest of the crew that you have two things. Number one, you've got catch, no catch in your AOR. And then secondly, you've also then got responsibilities back to your base. So there's no need then here in this instance for you two to come into the working area or the plate umpire to rotate up depending on the situation. Okay, so when we read tweeners, I challenge you to do both. Use that standing scissor stance to communicate that you have catch, no catch in your AOR and that you will return to your base and use point of bag. And that's exactly what happens here. Now again, remember, you want to get chest to ball. That's what this umpire does. He gets chest to ball, gets back to point of base. We see U2 depicted here. He's able to stay out, doesn't have to rotate. Plate umpire doesn't have to rotate up the line depending on what the situation was. Again, another great example of a tweener. Here we've got converging fielders. Okay, we've got two that are going backwards, one that's coming forward, probably a diving catch. Again, if we have a force play in this situation, it's going to be really difficult for an umpire to come back and pick up second base. So we want to use this standing set position to make sure that we've got eyes on it. And in that way, if we decide to, number one, take priority, catch, no catch, but in doing so on these tweeners, we don't want to hang our partner out to dry and ask them to get to a position where they may not be in a spot in time to go ahead and make the appropriate call, okay? So chasing tweeners can often put your crew in a tough position. Again, here's a great example. If we decide to chase a tweener, as the umpire does here, okay, so this is one that is kind of in that tweener area. It's dropping right in front of the left fielder right here. Our second base umpire gives chase. Then take a look at our third base umpire. He's busting tail here for a force play, doesn't necessarily get there in time. So it's important for us to think about here when we have these tweeners is to go ahead and read them and then try and do both. That way we don't hang out our partners to dry. Chasing tweeners can oftentimes put your crew in a tough position. Should they rotate? Can they actually get there in time? And again, as we see here, these tweeners, particularly on the 60-foot diamond, this is where it's specific, on the 60-foot diamond where we don't have enough time, we would rather you do both and use that standing set position that we talked about, that standing scissors, to communicate that, number one, you've got catch, no catch in your AOR, and that secondly, you will continue to be responsible for working point of base and be responsible for all plays then at your base, signifying to your crew that, number one, you've got catch, no catch, and secondly, that there is no need to rotate. Again, just a couple more examples here of these tweeners. Again, one that's right there, probably didn't necessarily need to go out on that one, but as we can see, a lot of work, very difficult here on those tweeners. Now again, this standing scissor stance is really important. We've already highlighted that one here. Again, that communicates here to your crew that you've got the AOR, you've got the catch, no catch, and that you're going to return back to your base. So that's a great fundamental, a great nonverbal for us to use. So we've got the stop hand as one of the nonverbals when we are going to track and chase. And then when we're going to do both on these tweeners, we're going to use that standing set position that we've got the ball in our AOR, and we're going to hold on to our base. A couple more good examples here of us using this one. This one here is probably the best look at that scissors stance that I was talking to you guys a little bit about to make sure that we are communicating right there, our umpire, through this stance right here. This stance right here, the standing set scissors. We've got chest to ball. That communicates you've got ball in your AOR, and you're going to go ahead and return back to your base for all plays at your base at point of base. All right, that'll go ahead and cover the primary responsibilities and primary fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls. And again, just a couple of things here to just circle back and highlight. Remember, pause, read, react. Pause is our pre-pitch routine. Think about, number one, what's your area of responsibility? Secondly, what's your rotation look like if one of your partners leave? That is what we should be thinking about pre-pitch. Our reads are threefold. Number one, read the fielder, not the ball, because remember, AOR and trouble versus routine oftentimes dictated by the movement or essentially the effort of the fielder. So it's important for us to read the fielder, not the ball. And then third here, make sure that we read our partners. Remember here that we want to get our eyes on our partners. Proper use of eyes is proper timing. We want to make sure our eyes are on our partners as well. And remember here that when we decide to go out, we can use that stop hand to communicate to our partner that, hey, I'm out, this one's mine. And then in those bloopers, those tweeners, we can use that standing set position to make sure we're communicating that we have the ball in our area of responsibility and will remain responsible then for plays at our base there on the 60-foot diamond. The last one then here after pause, read, and react is to go ahead and react, and that is when we track and chase. We're going to run parallel to the fielder so we don't get straight lined or on a short hop on a diving catch. Secondly, we want to get as far as we can and get set before the fielder goes ahead and makes the catch. And then lastly, when we go out, we're going to stay out unless we've got to return out for some subsequent action, particularly then on a rundown. Other than that, that'll go ahead and conclude this session on tracking and chasing fly balls on those fundamentals. Remember, a lot of the fundamentals of tracking and chasing fly balls with pause, read, and react not only apply to the 60-foot diamond, but also apply then to the larger diamond as well. Thank you for your attention. We'll have more videos breaking down the 4-umpire system here coming up shortly.